And I'd like to call in Professor Dirk Kotze from Unisa, bringing us some political analysis. And Prof, while you join me, we're going to bring up another one of the graphs looking at the ANC's promises. And most of the promises had to do with the economy. Around about half. So let's bring up an economy for all. And here you have, let's look at the third one. Allocate 30% of government spend to small business and co-ops and encourage the private sector to do the same. So you have a clear-cut target, but with many of them, you don't. So do you agree with me that the ANC could say, well, we're trying in all these areas?
Yes, I think with most of these objectives or targets, it's actually not measurable targets. It's not something that you can quantify. So you can't say we've built so many X number of houses, or we've built so many schools, or so many hospitals or so. These are more, I would say, general objectives. It is something which is not, you can't say, well, we've either met it or we haven't met it. It's about opinion. It's about, and as you've just said now, the ANC will always be on the positive side and the opposition always on the negative side. So in the end, I think this is, in a sense, slightly premature, actually, because they still have to present their new election manifesto, which will most possibly be early next year. And then the campaigning will take place, and then obviously the election. And that's the final verdict about all of these things. Because they can be objectives, but the test of all of this is what is the public opinion about it.
Well, what do you think of the ANC's opinion of itself, that it's achieved 70% of these objectives and other objectives?
Well, again, as I said, I think one can expect, it is predictable that the ANC will be positive about their results. I think we must also go back to last year.
Is it being kind to itself?
Yes, I think so, because, you know, in terms of election trends, it is at this stage, well, not only this stage, for more than a year, it is actually negative. They've lost support in 2021's local government election. They've lost a number of by-elections. And the public opinion is at this stage quite critical of the ANC. So for them it is about actually not saying, no, what have we done right, but what is the new program that they are going to present at next year's election that can cause a turnaround, whether it's about Eskom and electricity, whether it's about water, whether it's about infrastructure, all those aspects.
Are you saying that this could actually work against the party, saying we've done so well, when people are feeling some of the failures? Because the president has admitted there are failings at local government level, but that is where people feel it each and every day, the roads that they drive on, whether the trash is collected, safety and security in their own areas.
That's indeed so, and I think it would have made more sense if they actually looked at their manifesto of 2021. And that's the last local government election, the last election that they actually campaigned in. Because this election of 2019 was before the pandemic. What happened during the time of the pandemic, for example, in terms of job creation, completely turned it around. We lost more than 2 million jobs, instead of creating 300,000 as they set as an objective. So it's very difficult to look at this past 5 years in terms of this type of assessment, given this very extraordinary, strange circumstances that we experienced, and that they're actually now in the process of maybe building up, sort of recouping some of the losses of the period of the pandemic.
So because there's nothing on here around electricity, I did look at what the ANC said in 2021. The ANC will stabilize Eskom, provide safe and reliable electricity, and ensure all poor households receive the free electricity allocations they are entitled to. So that's a big promise, and look where we are.
Yes, that's indeed so. And I mean, the nature about what has happened in the, let's say, the last year or so with Eskom has changed around the sort of the trajectory of Eskom. But this is, in terms of the 5-year perspective, is actually very late. And as it is actually after the local government election. So for the ANC, it's a very tricky situation of how they can make an assessment of where objectively they stand. What they are also doing is, for example, opinion polls that they do as a political party. And I think that will give them, in the end, a better understanding of where they stand than making this type of more public statements and trying to, because in a sense it's already part of the election campaign.
It's an effort to get support, right?
Yes.
Saying we've done well,
yes.
Patting itself on the back, essentially.
Yes, and what is interesting about this is actually very early. You know, normally they start about 6 months or so before the election with the actual campaign. But it looks to me, and I'm speculating that given this moonshot pact national convention, multi-party charter, that maybe they are forced now to respond to that.
Because the rhetoric is coming on all sides.
Yes.
Looking at the electricity, I mean, the party would have to accept that electricity affects all those economic targets. It affects the entire economy.
Yes.
So maybe you do well on some of the smaller issues, but this is the big issue that remains. Let's bring up security and comfort for all. Another set of pledges, increase UIF. I'm looking for the social security benefits right at the top. Define a bigger basket of social security benefits. We have seen the 350 Rand come in.
Yes.
To what extent will that buoy the ANC, the people who've appreciated that lifeline?
I think when it comes to the SASSA grants, it is a big plus for the ANC. It has always been, and it's a major factor for them in terms of mobilizing support. Because many people see it as not government grants, but actually ANC grants. So that is, and this extra grants like the 350 Rand as a result of the pandemic, which wasn't planned when they drafted this in 2019.
Yes, exactly.
Came as, in a sense, sort of supports the ANC in this respect, or the government in general and the ANC. But then on other issues like what we have, let's say, the release of state land for people to build their own homes, or some other aspects about the use of land, which is not here now, it's obviously a very critical area. Look at what we've seen now in Johannesburg with these buildings that burned down. It's about accommodation. It's about access of land to people in urban areas who is coming to urban areas. So on the one hand, they will say, well, this is part of history. Others will say it's a failure because they didn't provide enough accommodation. And
I mean, maybe we can end off with the bottom there. Provide safe toilets and eradicate the bucket system. That is clear, that is measurable, because we have people measuring how many pit toilets, bucket toilets we still have, and they are still there. So let's remind our viewers, that was 2019, the ANC said providing safe toilets.
The second one from the bottom is now the big issue for the future, and that's water.
Yeah, provide clean water and fast track and unblock key projects.
I mean, like I came now from Pretoria. We don't have water at the moment because the reservoirs are low, and because of the electricity of the load shedding. So this has become, after electricity, I would say, and many people predict this, as the next big issue. And we have actually seen a decline in terms of the quality of water provision, not an improvement during these 5 years.
All right, thank you very much for your analysis. We're fact-checking as far as we can what the ANC is saying about itself this weekend, giving itself 70% in terms of meeting those manifesto targets from 2019.